Hello y'all, it's April 25th. We are standing in a crop of crimson clover, which is an annual leguminous cover crop. Leguminous means it takes nitrogen and converts it to fertilizer. We're going to talk about this in a second, but it also brings in lots of bees, lots of pollinators. This field will be ready to plant with something that heavily feeds on nitrogen in about another 3 or 4 weeks. Let's go talk about the nitrogen cycle. Early today we looked at crimson clover, an annual leguminous plant. Leguminous means it is a nitrogen fixer. So what is all this talk about nitrogen? We'll come around here, Preston, and we'll look. I didn't have a piece of construction paper, so I just opened up a box, but our atmosphere is composed of 78% nitrogen gas, N2. 2 N's from the periodic chart, triple covalent bond, very strong bond. Well, nitrogen is not absorbed by our body like oxygen is. Nitrogen is not absorbed in the air form from plants. So how do we use it? It starts with the leguminous plants. This is the clover plant, and these are the roots with little balls called nodules on them. The nodules have bacteria in them. It takes atmospheric nitrogen and converts it to ammonium, NH4. And then it picks up another O2 and drops the hydrogen and becomes nitrite by another bacterial process, and then becomes a nitrate with a third oxygen. And the nitrate form is the form of nitrogen that gets into the entire food chain, plants and animals. So the fertilizer from the ground, because that nitrogen we're talking about is down here in the soil, goes and feeds the plants. So nitrogen is necessary for plants and to animals for the synthesis of proteins and DNA and RNA. So the plants are eaten by animals. So the animals have a more concentrated form of protein than the plants. And then the animals poop and pee and decay along with dead animals, dead plants decay, and they go back basically towards ammonia over here. And another process basically goes back to the atmosphere. So it's one big circle. That's where nitrogen comes from naturally. The other way we can get nitrogen naturally is when lightning strikes in a rainstorm. The nitrogen bonds, which remember were really strong bonds, get broken apart by that blast of energy and gets in the water droplets, and that's why plants look so green after a heavy thunderstorm. That's all been good. That's the way it's worked for millions of years and farmers for thousands of years. But back between World War I and World War II, people started learning to synthesize nitrogen, and it came from bomb making material. Basically, bombs were composed and still are composed sometimes of ammonium nitrate. It's a process where the atmospheric nitrogen is converted to this form with natural gas. It's a very energy intensive process to make synthetic nitrogen. Just think of it like the lightning bolt. Well, ammonium nitrate has been used for bomb making and other processes like that for a long time, but after World War II, our government had a lot of leftover ammonium nitrate from bomb making, so they said, let's give it to farmers and get farmers to start using it as a fertilizer, because it really does increase the yield and it allows a farmer to double or triple crop in one season on the same land. So we started getting away from the natural process, and farmers basically got addicted to synthetic nitrogen, kind of like getting addicted to sugar. And it changed agriculture, and it changed the varieties that we grow, and it changed the processes. But now, with this debacle happening in Europe and the whole natural gas problem in Ukraine, we're realizing what the problem is. If we can't get cheap natural gas, farmers can't make nitrogen, and countries can't make nitrogen. So this spring and this summer and this fall is going to be a real hard time for farmers and for the food supply. So the whole process of making nitrogen and adding protein to plants and to animals and to us is going to change, and it's going to cost a whole lot more because we have gotten away from Mother Nature's way. But you as a gardener can continue to grow organic, natural seeds and make your own nitrogen, either with an annual or perennial. This is the white Dutch clover. This is the clover that grows in your yard that can be seeded. We've got people that try to kill clover and people that plant white Dutch clover, both of which pull in pollinators, both of which are edible. You can get good protein that way. So remember that Mother Nature has a way to fertilize everything. Nitrogen is off the periodic chart. Sometime we'll talk about phosphorus and potash, which is another worldwide problem of elements on the periodic chart that we use for fertilizer. And sometime we'll talk about something like this. This is the nitrogen cycle. We'll talk about the carbon cycle, which is organic chemistry. A lot of politicians like to talk about carbon footprint and carbon pricing and all. Well, they don't know anything. It's all Mother Nature. So we'll try to explain in very simple terms what the carbon cycle is some other time. So we'll see you again next week.